Hey guys, welcome to Tech Vitals. Today we are going to learn about functions in Python. So function is just a block of code that runs certain task or that runs certain code whenever we call that function. So using function, we can define a certain task and we can execute that task whenever we want that task to be executed. So let's see the example. In Python, we use def or def keyword to define a function. So let's say def, and let's give the function name. Let's say greet, and then inside this function we can write the code. So let's say print good morning. So here we just defined a function called greet, and inside this function we have a task to print this good morning string. So if we run this program right now, it won't display anything because we just defined the function, we haven't called this function. So to call this function, we simply write the name of this function and put this parenthesis. So now if we run this, then it's printing good morning because here we called this function greet, and when we called it, it executed the task that has been written inside this function. So let's say a equals 2, b equals 3, and let's print the addition of these two variables a plus b. So now if we run this, it is printing 5 because here it's printing a plus b, that is 2 plus 3. Now here, instead of printing within the function, we can just return the value outside of the function. So let's replace this print with return, and let's return a plus b. Okay, so right now we are not printing the a plus b, but we are returning the a plus b. Now to catch this value, we have to store that value in some kind of variable. So let's say add, and in this add variable, let's call this greet function. So now this a plus b that is returned by this function will be stored in this add variable. So we can say print 2 plus 3 equals, and then comma, and then we can just print the value of this add. So if we run this, it printed 2 plus 3 equals 5, and this 5 is returning from this greet function and is stored in this add variable, and that's how we got that 5 in this add. Okay, so now instead of defining this a and b inside this function, we can simply send these values from outside of the function. So let's remove this, and inside this parenthesis, let's say a comma b. So these a and b are the arguments for this greet function. So while calling this greet function, we can pass the value for this a and b. So let's say we pass 4 and 5. Now when we call this greet function with this 4 and 5 value, this 4 will be stored in this a variable and this 5 will be stored in this b variable, and then this function is returning a plus b. So now this greet function must return 4 plus 5, that is 9. So let's change these values to 4 plus 5, and we are still getting this a plus b in our add variable. So this add variable should get the value of 9. So if we try to run this, now it's saying 4 plus 5 equals 9. And we can send as many arguments as we want in the function. So let's say a, b, c, and d. So right now this function has 4 arguments. So we can send 4 values in this function. So let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now instead of returning a plus b, let's return a plus b plus c plus d. And let's change this to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. Now the addition should be 4, 7, 9, 10. So now this add should have the value of 10. So let's try to print it. And as you can see, we just passed 4 variables or 4 values in this greet function, and it returned the addition of those 4 values. And here we can also define the default value. So let's say d equals 1. So here we defined the default value for d, that is 1. So if we pass all the values like this, 1 for A, 2 for B, 3 for C, and 4 for D, then the value of D will be 4. But let's say we just pass 3 values, so 1 for A, 2 for B, and 3 for C. We are not passing the 4th variable. So now, even if we don't pass the value for D, since we have defined the default value for D, it will take this 1 and store in the D. So it will return 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1. So here it will make this D to 1, and it will return those addition. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 1 equals 7. But if we give the value, then this default value will be overwritten and D will take the value of 4. So now it will be 4 and it will return 10. Okay. And here we are just passing the integer values, but we can pass any kind of data types. So let's define just 2 arguments for this function. Let's remove this for now. And now let's pass 25 for this A, and let's pass a string for this B. So let's say Paul. Now A has the value of 25, that is integer value, and B has the value of Paul, which is a string value. So now let's return my name is, and let's use this f string. So my name is B because B has the value of string, this Paul, and I am A years old. So A has the value of 25. So it should return my name is Paul and I am 25 years old. So let's print add, and now let's run this. And as expected, it returned my name is Paul and I am 25 years old. So here we passed integer along with the string value in the same greet function. And notice that I'm using this f string in my function. So to be able to use the f string, you must be using the Python version 3.6 or above. And if you are using the older Python version, then instead of this f string, you need to use string format method. So you do something like this: return my name is, and then you'd use this curly braces dot format, and then the value that you want to use. So B in this case plus, and I am, again this curly braces dot format, A plus years old. So without using the f string, we can use this dot format method, and it will also return the same thing. So if we try to run this, so it also returned my name is Paul and I am 25 years old. So that's the use of function. We can just define the empty function, or we can define the function with the arguments. We can define different tasks inside the function, or we can also return the specific value. And to call this function, we can simply write the name of that function and we'll get all the results of that function. So functions are really simple yet powerful features of any programming language. So that's gonna do it for this video. I'll see you soon with the next video. Till then, keep learning. Goodbye.